Oh yeah, some phones on vibrate are off or silent. Oh, we're here in the audience. Did everybody hear me? Phones on vibrate or silence? Thank you. We're all set. Thank you very much. I'm Vanessa Winter. I'm a former board president and community member. Thank you very much this evening for attending, audience, those that are watching at home, and candidates, thank you very much for stepping up and volunteering your time and away from family commitments. Thank you. Here's how it's going to be formatted today. We will have questions from the audience. I've already received some. If anybody has any more as we're going through, there is a basket over there. You can fill out questions. If I don't have time to do them today, I'll keep them and we'll carry them on to next week. The questions will have one question. Every candidate will have 2 minutes to answer it. There'll be a sign. The yellow sign goes up with 30 minutes or 30 seconds left. 30 minutes would be very bad. And then when the red sign goes up, it's a hard stop. So I apologize if I'm rude, but we need to keep with the time. We will start with 2-minute opening statements. I will start randomly for opening statements. I'm going to alternate because there are 3 candidates that are that have submitted their statements, but we're not here to read. But we want to not be boring and have me read, so we'll kind of alternate a little bit. On that note, candidates, any questions regarding the format? Excellent. Then we'll go ahead and get started. 2 minutes, and I'm just going to start to my right. Kevin?
All right, lucky me. Winner, chicken dinner. Good evening, everybody. For those of you that I have yet to meet, my name is Kevin Kirby. I've been part of Celebration since about 2010, but first as a business resident. That's what really brought me here originally. I had an office over in the La Rose building on Celebration Boulevard, and it was there that I actually had my first moment looking out the office like we all do. We have those proud moments, and looking out, seeing the Mickey Power Tower across World Drive, and saying, you know what, there's something about this community, there's something about this place that I really like. Steve, not to take CCMC a slogan, but it felt like home. That's really what started. And from there I decided, you know, Kev, this is where you live, this is where you play, this is where you have fun, the restaurants, the bike trails, the gym. Why don't you go ahead and look to make this home? So that's when I said, you know, growing up on Long Island, it was a small community just like ours, and this is where I wanted to plant my roots and get my family started. In 2013, I started my real estate search. Ended up saying, you know, the company I had was a property management company, not the same as CCMC, so different scope, but vacation home property management. So we focused on short-term rentals. But our core and the foundation was the same as all property management, where you start by protecting the asset of your client, and you ensure that that asset is what's taken care of. Now, when I came in, I purchased a condo originally that was in town center. The reason why I went for that condo was in fact because condos are maintenance free. But it did escalate me to get involved into the community that much quicker. I learned that alphabet soup, I learned the different entities, and I dissected them and understood them. Just like a lot of people in the community, what brings you to a CROA meeting or any meeting is typically a concern, but what keeps you is when you have the ability to learn. And so what I've been doing is frequenting a lot of the CROA meetings and understanding where the alphabet soup falls. And it's at this point that I'd like to go ahead and continue to ensure my family can have a great home here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackson?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jackson Mummy. It's nice to see so many familiar faces because for my wife Sarah and I, over 20 years ago, the town of Celebration welcomed us with open arms. It created friendships for our children that have lasted a lifetime. It gave us a friendly place for dinner at Max's, you remember Max's, or at the tavern. It gave us joy at the wonder of New Year's and the 4th of July fireworks out on the golf course. It offered us worship in the school cafeteria because that was the only place available. It gave us Bible study in new friends' homes and crawfish boils in the backyard. It was also the place where we rejoiced over the first win for the high school basketball team, and later where the speech and debate team that I founded found their way to the state and then ultimately the national debate champions, the first in our town's history. It was also a place where our about-to-be new neighbors helped us with a 10-day bridge loan when our financing for our dream David Weekley home ran into trouble. It was where we giggled at our children selling real Celebration lemonade from real Celebration kids, and where tourists sometimes tried to open our door and asked us if we were hired by Disney to live here. This is the town that reached out to us, and it changed our lives. It gave us friendships and challenges and neighbors unlike anywhere else. And it's where Sarah and I returned after a time away because, truthfully, there's only one Celebration. So my reason for asking to represent you on CROA is because I love this town. I love what it is and what lies ahead. There will be challenges and problems. We'll talk about those tonight, but there have always been dreamers and doers, and that is what's made this town special. I want to make sure that we continue to be a place that greets newcomers with the same generous spirit and promise of community that greeted us in 1996 as the first residents of Celebration. It's my honor to be a candidate for CROA.
Thank you, Jackson. After this, I'm going to go ahead and read one of the handwritten or typed submissions from Mr. Hudspeth, Gary Hudspeth. Good evening. While I was unable to attend tonight's forum due to a previous commitment, I will be here for the February 13th forum. I'm an advocate for accountability, efficient management, and fiscal responsibility. I'm also a proponent for maintaining the standards that define our Celebration quality of life. I am currently a member of the Covenants Committee, which has allowed me to develop working knowledge of the Celebration Charter, bylaws, and covenants. Over the last 2 years, I have attended most all of the CROA board meetings and many of the CROA workshops and CDD meetings. I initiated the monthly Community Standards article in the Celebration News to familiarize homeowners with design, landscape, and aesthetic standards found in the Celebration Charter and design guidelines. I provide written comments to the newly revised CCMC contract. I provided written updates and comments to the Spring Lake Service Area Landscape Contract and other Celebration design guidelines. I advocated that CDD keep Celebration residents informed with online schedules and updates to the CDD activities to include stump removal and tree replacement following the hurricane damage. As Celebration continues to grow in size and diversity, I want our infrastructure and style opportunities to keep pace with the resident needs. An important asset to Celebration would be the addition of a true community center that provides activity spaces for families and enhances programs for youth and adult. Fulfillment of the Celebration Park and Recreation Committee's programs for the, sorry. I guess I need my glasses a little more than I thought. Sorry, Gary. Recreation Committee's recommendations for the athletic fields is a priority. With a smart use of funds and community involvement, I think Celebration deserves a civic center to remain a first-class community. I believe my career experiences in analysis and contracts, budgeting, and problem-solving provides a good background for serving on the CROA Board of Directors. I ask for your support in the election of the CROA to the CROA Board. Thank you, Gary Hudspeth. Sorry, Gary. Jeff Taylor, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Taylor. I am a very short-term Celebration resident. My wife owns X Factor Dance and Gymnastics that is a dance program for the children here in Celebration, and she's owned it for, I want to say, 6 years, and the first few years we lived in downtown Orlando. I'm an Orlando native and had lived in the downtown or East Orlando area for my entire life. And she first started kind of saying, we both worked at Disney, and she first started saying, I really would love to live in Celebration. And I thought to myself, I just never considered Celebration. I've heard like it's sort of a Disney thing. We both work at Disney. We met at Disney. Just no more Disney. But she finally, happy wife, happy life, she finally talked me into renting a place in Celebration, and we rented in the North Village. And we were happily renting over there, and then I fell in love with this community and decided this is where I want to stay. So we bought a place in the East Village, and my daughter attends Celebration High School. We have a brand new 9-month-old child who will eventually go to the K through 8 and hopefully on to Celebration High School. I love living here. I never thought I would, but I came in and I started to kind of go downtown, and I thought, you know, most neighborhoods don't offer this kind of small town feel anymore, especially in Florida. And so we've really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to either, continue the beauty of celebration, or if I can, start to make it even better than it already is. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jack. Cindy?
Hi, my name is Cindy Swisher. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's here tonight, and then those of you who will also watch from home. I found out about Celebration because one of my nephews was hired by Disney after he got out of college. He's still working there now, as is his wife. But I remember when he started talking about, and this is going to be, so great, they're going to have these little cars, everyone's going to have a porch, and people are going to walk around, and blah, blah, blah. And then we came to visit him, and there was, I think the downtown was there, and pretty much, wasn't too much else. But being in community theater, my husband and I walked down the streets with all the bright colors. I thought, oh my God, this is just like being on stage with all the beautiful colors, and it just really spoke to us. And we thought, boy, we'd love to live here. Fast forward, several years later, we were down here visiting my nephew, and a friend of mine who used to work at the bank was also living in this area. We came here and started looking at models' homes. I fell in love with the model that I saw, and the next thing you know, we're in Florida. So that's how we got here. Now that I've been here for going on 15 years, I think I have a pretty good idea of what makes this community tick. I believe that my banking background, coupled with my experience working here at Town Hall, puts me in a unique position to make decisions that make not only good business sense, but are also in the best interest of the community. So I hope this will become evident as we proceed with tonight's forum. Thanks.
I'm going to read this now we've gotten to. So now we will move to Lee Moore's statement. I'd like to apologize to the Celebration residents in attendance tonight, one streaming from home, and the residents on the panel that are running for CROA. Unfortunately, I could not make it tonight due to an out-of-town business trip. I know the commitment involved and dedication it takes to run for CROA, and I commend all of those running for their dedication to the community. There's really no wrong choice for CROA. Each person running is committed to the benefit of the community as it is and is shown just by the virtue of putting themselves out and running. They care deeply about the town. I want to thank each and every one of them. What sets me apart and why I ask for your vote, Celebration, is my 30 years of business experience improving organizations. I've also spent almost 15 years volunteering in leadership roles for Celebration. I have a record of making positive change for the community, either to ensure meeting space for older adults or to ensure our youth have the facilities and fields they need to grow. I've been an advocate for the dog park, an advocate and representative for Celebration to Osceola County, and staunch supporter of technological enhancements. I'm a change agent, but not a disruptive sense. I plan to be on CROA board where we set goals and outline KPIs to ensure we meet these goals. With my experience in town management, county, and local politics, I will be the best choice for Celebration. I'm asking for your support. Thank you. Vaughn, your turn.
See if I can get this to work. Well, my name is Vaughn Roberts, and I live in South Village. Been here since 2014. I had a canned speech, and I trashed it. I decided not to go over anything that's already in my profile online or in any publication. All I'd like to say is I've done a lot of work with local, county, and state governments down in South Florida and throughout the state. I've written numerous interlocal agreements, memorandums of understanding between agencies and organizations. For 10 years, I participated in the legislature up in Tallahassee, mainly pushing bills for victims' rights and some union issues as well. I'm over there, and I have a meeting with them in March. So we're looking forward to that, to get some volunteers to help with security over there. I believe in open government. I think the board needs to be very open in what they do, and to disclose everything that's legally required to be disclosed. I think I'm going to save more time for resident questions to get into more detailed aspects if we're going to talk about the corridor, safety, whatever it happens to be. But thank you for coming, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Glenn. Jesse?
Hello? You're on. I'm on. Okay. Just double checking. My name is Jesse Opelka. I originally am from upstate New York. I have a background in design. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and in Savannah, it's one of the first planned communities in. I think it is the original first planned community in the United States, and it's still there and it's still functioning. And there's elements that the town was designed around around Savannah. But I learned about celebration and new urbanism when I studied architecture and a lot of our architectural history classes, and I just found it really interesting. And when I decided to move here, I thought I'd check it out. I didn't think I'd like it, but I moved to Market Street. I'm a resident of a town center, and it was a rental unit. So I've lived here as a renter, and also as I purchased it. So it's interesting to see the different perspectives on what information renters get versus property owners in town. And I always had questions about things and what's going on. And I mean, the information's out there. It's just really difficult to get to sometimes. And I'd like to be that go-between person, perhaps, to maybe represent people who don't feel comfortable or have a voice in the community and are unable to attend some of these meetings. And also, it's okay to ask questions and just to find out answers. And there's a lot of history, and some of it's myth and some of it's not. It's hard to distinguish the difference. So I would just like to represent the community.
Thank you, Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read Brian Kensel's statement really quick. Good evening. Due to a previous travel commitment, I'm unable to attend tonight's candidate forum. My wife Sandy and I have lived full-time in Celebration since 2008. Before retiring in 2016, I worked for 2 global reinsurers as both the U.S. and Global Chief Financial Officer, and served on boards and board committees such as Finance, Enterprise Risk Management, and Internal Audit. I've also been active with charitable endeavors. My wife and I were very active with the Community Presbyterian Church of Celebration in starting the Community Hope Center. Currently, I serve on the advisory boards for both the Boys and Girls Club and the Celebration Foundation. I believe this background has allowed me to develop good understanding of the administrative, communication, and financial challenges of organizations of varying sizes and objectives. While attending CROA board meetings and workshops, I became more involved as the CCMC contract renewal process evolved. I've read the Celebration Community Charter. I learned that CROA interaction can bring real value to the community. Specific strengths I believe I can bring to CROA include a good understanding of the community. I've lived here for 10 years. An ability to understand and contribute to the financial management, budget, and control structure of the community. As father and grandfather, I fully appreciate the need for supporting facilities and programs in our community. I'm a big supporter of programs such as Thriving in Place and the value they bring in helping our residents to more fully enjoy living in Celebration. Protecting owner investment and understanding the downtown infrastructure and commercial needs and how they impact our community. As Celebration continues to grow, we need to work together to make it a safe place for all residents. Whether it's traffic patterns during event parking or other such items, these will be the focus for me. These are my goals to enhance community we have all come to know and love over the last 20 years. I want to see Celebration achieve incredible things, maintain the vision set forth by its visionaries, and keep dreams of every resident alive and in a place we all call home. Thank you very much for your opening statements. Appreciate it.
Everybody already knows you.
Thanks for this.
Sorry, Leonard. Please don't take it personal. I apologize.
I see I'm not on your short list.
You're always on the list, Leonard.
Thanks everyone for attending this evening. I've been here for 21 years and initially found out about Celebration in 1994 when it was started hitting the papers in Central Florida. In 1995, I was up in front of where Sol Malay is at a great big tent that was set up there, and it was the lottery for the very first set of houses in the Celebration Village. We moved in November '96, which means I've been here a little bit over 21 years now. So I'm old enough to drink here now. So currently, I'm the vice president of CROA. I've been on a 2-year term, which ends in March. I am a member of the Celebrators, a member of the Veterans Club. I'm sure you've seen me out if you attend any of our Memorial Day, 4th of July, or Veterans Day ceremonies. You'll either see me riding my hand cycle with the large American flag behind it, or you'll see me on my Segway marching with the other vets from Celebration. Trying to think what else is really important here. I kind of do a lot of notes down through here. I guess the only other thing I have to say about, if anyone questions any positions, I want to say one more thing. I am very much a supporter of thriving and lifelong learning. I sat with Paul and Neil Lincoln, Paul Kinzer and Neil Lincoln over here in an office one day to try to figure out the actual deal that got passed by the board that had a same. I'm out of time.
Unfortunately, there's more questions coming, Leonard. You can finish your thought. Now we're complete with our opening statements. Thank you very much. And again, I apologize, Leonard. With that, we will go ahead and start our questions. And the first question is there's different categories we have outlined. The first question is going to be, what specifically would you like to champion as a project, initiative, or undertaking during your term? And Leonard, since I almost shorted you last time, I'm going to let you take over now.
Okay. And Steve, when I get to 30, can you say 30, please? Yeah, I missed you altogether there. Things I would like to champion.
Things to champion.
I would like to. I'll continue with lifelong and thriving in place. I would like to champion their continuation of having space, and not necessarily free space, as Paul and I have discussed, but space that will work for them and continue to make their programs thrive, so that we can partner with the foundation as well as, well, in this instance with the foundation, but in other cases partnering with other groups to make Celebration a more enjoyable place to live. Secondly, right now we are in the middle of completing the Civic Corridor fields, the athletic fields there. I would like to continue working along that line. I have worked for the last 2 years on that, which was planned and brought up in prior boards before that. You would know that because you were on those boards, Vanessa. And as part of that, we have went through and value engineered money out of there. Initially, our road in there was going to cost $950,000. We went through and did some value engineering, but we also did some contact with the golf course, which I led Steve, and I wrote the letter. He wrote part of it, and we went back and forth and sent it off to Jack Davis eventually. We will be closing on that parcel on the 15th of February. And in my last couple of seconds, basically, I just look forward to being a good steward of the monies that we pay in to as assessments. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Jesse?
think that there's a lot of issues going on in town right now that we always hear about everywhere. One of them being safety, traffic, parking, but we also have other projects coming on. We have the assisted living facilities, and there's also an issue with the school district. They don't have enough bus drivers, and so that's one of another issues. So I think there's ways of kind of combining those and looking at the new expansion of everything and all combined and sort of, I don't know, coming up with some kind of internal transportation. We had a trolley years ago. I don't know if anybody, it was like a bus trolley. I think it was not at the right time for Celebration. We weren't big enough, I think, but now that we've spread out and there's more places to go, I think that would be something that maybe we should revive or look into. And it would help with parking, I think, downtown, and traffic in some ways, and safety. So kind of get everything covered in one idea. That's just an idea, but we'll see.
Thank you, Jesse. Bob?
I think one of the main things I like to do, with my background in law enforcement, is to look at the security issues that we have in Celebration. Some of us, and you can read it on the social media, that we have issues with home security, personal security, auto theft and theft of tires, etc., like that. Event security downtown, when we have all these events put on downtown, we have a lot of issues with traffic, and I think personally, I think there's just a lack of visible security. I understand that they've put some people down there in civilians in plain clothes down there, but I think you really need some visible security downtown. And I'm also very strong on the security for the elementary school. I signed up for Oasis so I could start a program over there. I've already talked to the administration over there, and I've met with I met with and spoke with the president of Relics. Is anybody a Relic member here? Retired Educators Living in Celebration is what it stands for. And I'm going to meet with them in March, and we're going to see if we can get this program off the ground over there. Because I have a vested interest. I have my youngest daughter and my granddaughter living with us, and she attends K-8. And the other thing I think we really need to look at closely is that corridor over there. I have personally some issues over there. I think there's a lot of questions. Hopefully the questions come up about funding of that corridor and the design aspects that are being worked on. My time's up. Thank you. Pardon me?
15 seconds.
It's too late. I couldn't get my mind working that quickly. I need more than 15 seconds.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Cindy, please.
I have a list. First of all, I think I remember that the master plan had a lot more to it than just a civic center and the fields and all that stuff. I'd like to take another hard look at those other items and see how many of these smaller projects can be done sooner rather than later. There was something, a thing or two being done in East Village, maybe picnic tables here or grills there or something like that. That's number one. Number two, I'd kind of like to get a feel for how long it will be before we can reasonably expect a community center and kind of investigate if there could be a possible short-term solution to the space problem. I'd like to look into if there's any value to resurrecting our volunteer program. Those of you who have been here for a long time, we used to have a ton of folks that we could just pick up the phone and get their help for any kind of projects we had going on. Traffic, I don't need to say anymore. But one thing I'd like to, been thinking about is, are we doing enough to welcome and acclimate our new residents to life and celebration? Is it enough? Our community is growing. Spring Lake and Island Village are much like the suburbs now. I can easily see how folks could feel detached. We used to have welcome to the neighborhood events years ago. We used to give out packets to people that had just moved in, and now I think they're given a CD, maybe. One idea I've been tossing around, and those of you who are kind of in my age bracket, don't laugh, is to revive the old welcome wagon concept. When we purchased our first home back in the late 70s, shortly after we moved there, friendly neighbors showed up, came bearing gifts, coupon at the local car wash, free dessert at the restaurant downtown, letter opener from the bank, and offered a sincere welcome. We're glad you moved here. They didn't stay long, but boy, that was a great feeling, and I'd like to see that happen here.
Cindy? Jeff?
So I became an audience member for a moment there because my main issue that I would like to champion coincides with Vaughn. I may actually be casting my vote for him after he spoke. I have, as I said before, a high school age child, and I've seen a lot of the children of our neighborhood are exposed to a lot of things, especially in the high school age. And I feel like we need to look into some way to, I think it would be ridiculous to think that we could keep kids that don't live in the neighborhood out, but I feel like there needs to be eyes that are watching all of the basketball courts are the thing that comes to mind off the top of my head, because that seems to be a place where a lot of things that we wouldn't want our children to be exposed to are happening. And I feel like safety from just to be able to feel like our kids can run around our neighborhood safely and not be exposed to anything that we wouldn't want them to be exposed to is huge for me. It was a major factor in me deciding to run, and so if both of us are able to make it onto this board, I feel like that'll be something that we'll definitely both be tag teaming on.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson?
It's an interesting question, particularly because it uses the word champion. You know, champion is an advocate. It's somebody who's single-minded and says, that's the thing I'm only focused on. I don't think that's what CROA needs. I think what CROA needs are people that are willing to look at the broader sense of what's going on in the community and are willing to work through those problems, work through those challenges. There's no shortage of projects in this town. There's never been a shortage of projects in this town. But I think that what we should be doing is looking for fiscal responsibility. We should be looking for transparency. We should be looking for people who will talk in the sunlight about what's going on and put it in front of the community and deal with the community. I don't want a champion who works behind closed doors and backroom deals to make something happen because it's their pet project. This is our community together. We need all of the things that you've heard everyone here address tonight as projects and things that we should work on. I agree with Vaughn. There's a lot to talk about with the corridor. I certainly agree that there's something to talk about when it comes to recreation and place and the schools and all of the things that are going on in this community. But let's start by talking about what's good for all of us instead of what's good for one group or one person or one individual entity.
Thank you, Jackson.
Jackson said it perfectly. To champion one thing, this is a 7-member board over the course of 2 years. To go ahead and focus on one item is really just, it's concerning for the community as a whole. A couple things that do come to mind that I can go ahead and bring to light is sitting back, especially over the past year, we saw a lot of concerns coming from artisan members. Artisan members, just like many service areas, feel as though they don't have a voice and the transparency isn't there and conversation is difficult to have when your board of CROA is making decisions that are affecting you directly. I feel that. I currently own and live in South Village now, but as a member of Town Center Condos, I felt that directly. Of course, that opens up a different can of worms, and we won't get into that any further. We do need to learn from that, though, and plan for our growth and our future. We have Island Village coming in that's going to have mixed use, similar to our downtown now. We need to go ahead and learn from our past and ensure that our future doesn't fall into that same issue. We're growing between Island Village to New Windsor. We're going to have a lot of houses, a lot of residents that are in the community that may decide to go ahead and take that next step in life and go off to Windsor. How's that going to affect the values of all of our houses when it becomes a buyer's market? These are the things that we need to go ahead and ensure that the community keeps that top-notch celebration name. So growing off of the service areas, the planning for the growth, of course, as Cindy mentioned, traffic is a great thing that we need to keep an eye on, especially most recently with downtown. That's a safety concern. Something that this board will see over the next 2 years in conversation, I'm shocked it hasn't come up yet, is going to be regarding that RFP and what happened with CCMC. This board that's coming on now has 2 years not to change that contract, but to hold CCMC to a higher metrics and hold them to what has been agreed upon. And that is a core focus that this next board needs to go ahead and concentrate on.
Thank you, Kevin. Communication was discussed a couple times, so I'll do this. Why do you feel the board's communication, or do you feel the board's communication with the community is adequate? If so, what medium do you believe is most effective? And if not, what could be changed or done better? I'm going to start with Vaughn.
You have to.
I do.
Okay.
Sorry.
Board communication. I'll tell you, one of the issues I had, and I spoke to Leonard about this earlier before the meeting started, the RFP was a big deal. And I sat in, as an audience member, I sat and listened to the CROA meetings over and over again. And I understand both positions, but I felt that even though they showed that from other organizational documents that an RFP really wasn't needed, because if something's working, the CAI would say it's okay. I had an issue with that, and I told Leonard that I did, because it's important, I feel, to go out, even though you go out and speak to other entities, other management companies. I still think that you need to come back with numbers in the form of a proposal, because if you don't come back with something, if you just go speak to somebody and say, well, I went out and spoke with them, and really this company is the best. Well, to me, that's not disclosure. I think you really need to go out there, bring the numbers in the form of a proposal from different companies, and show them to the residents. Show them that this company will do this for this amount of money, and this is the job they've been doing. They've been doing good jobs here, or they're not so good in this area. But I just think that type of disclosure is very important. I think they're doing a good job. I think the board's doing a good job in the paper. I think maybe we could put some more articles in there from staff, from town hall staff on various issues. But I think transparency, as Jackson was saying, is very important for the board, and that the residents are made aware exactly what's going on. I'm done.
Thank you, Vaughn. I was actually going to call you next.
Which way you going?
I'm alternating, so but we'll just. Cindy, why don't you go ahead? That's fine.
Okay. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to the broader question that you first that you brought up, the communication in general. Frankly, the negative comments I hear and read about the board and CCMC not communicating with residents puzzles and frustrates me. The town regularly communicates using the front porch, the Friday Flash, Facebook, Twitter, the Celebration News, Cell Service, Instagram, lobby monitors, community bulletin boards, statement stuffers, direct mail for information of high importance like budget selections, stuff like that, quarterly surveys, postcards, those are used usually for just little special notices, and live streaming of CROA board meetings and workshops that are later posted to YouTube. Short of a personal phone call, door-to-door canvassing, or hiring a town crier, I'm not sure what else they could do. I read the Friday Flash, the Celebration News, visit the front porch, and attend board meetings and workshops to keep up to date. And there's very little that gets by me. The information is out there in every way, shape, and form. No one is trying to hide anything. It's all there if you look and take time to read it. If you don't know where to find it, all you have to do is ask.
Thank you, Cindy.
Sorry. My thought on this, and I have a wife who's in this building on a daily basis, so I always know what's going on. So I typically don't have to go looking for the information, but I am not sure. I'll do a little bit more research, but is there an email address? I would suggest an email address where if you have a concern, you can send it to the CROA board, and the board can answer those questions accordingly. Would be the only thing I would think where you could get a more personal answer to your question.
Thank you, Jeff. Jackson.
Governing is messy, and it means it has to be done in the sunlight, and it means it has to be done so that people know what's going on. I don't disagree that there are many, many ways that we choose to communicate. Cindy's right. There are a variety of things, but what she failed to mention is that they're all after the fact. You see, the point of communication is to bring people in at the beginning, to make them part of the process, to give them a voice as we're going through this. It's to make it transparent and let people see what's going on. You know, you shouldn't have to rely on getting your information, Jeff, because your wife works in the building. That shouldn't be part of the process here. And until we're ready to really come on to the sunshine and say we're going to do these things in the open, even when we disagree, even when it's messy, even when it's not the most efficient way to do it, is what we need to do. I appreciate the hours and hours that CROA board members and staff put in on all of the work they do. I come from the law. We talk about judicial efficiency all the time. But the truth is that the most important things that happen in the law happen in the open courtroom. They don't happen behind closed doors. The most important things that should happen in this community should happen in the sunshine, and it should be transparent.
Jackson?
So one thing, and if I understand the question correctly, it's what is the board doing well on communication and what could they improve on?
Do you feel the board's communication with the community is adequate? If so, which medium is most effective? If not, what could be done better?
Fair. That's how I understood it. So one thing that's great, and Eric is going to be missed as far as his technology side of things, but he did bring in live feed, which recording these helps those who cannot attend. One thing that I see that I could have benefited from when I take myself out of the shoes of somebody that may know board members, may have people that work in the town hall, take somebody and take them away from everything, and how do you get information to them? You're not friends with employees, you're not friends with anybody else. Now, when you do that, do you attend other association meetings? Are you, as CROA, saying, hey, can I have an invitation to your committee to go ahead and get a first-hand understanding of what frustrations you have, which ties into the fact of be proactive, not reactive. All of the examples of responding on Facebook front porch, those are all reactive responses. Facebook in itself is not an official standpoint from the board or from the management company. That is something that has been negotiated in the newest contract, but that was not something that was a common practice. That communication will help, and by having a Facebook direct relationship, we all know the back porch for Facebook. We all know it. That is not an official standpoint, but it is the most convenient for residents to learn and understand what's going on. So the best thing that we could do is nip the issue in the bud before somebody gets their imagination going of what the problem is, and say, did you reach out to this person? This is the person to reach out to go ahead and learn more. It's not airing out that dirty laundry. It's this is the direction that you need to go to get that taken care of. Facebook's not it.
Thank you, Kevin. Leonard?
Communication is not my forte, I would say. I'm not a great eloquent speaker. I bring the knowledge of business and the part of digging in very deep on issues in order to solve the problems that we have. But let me back up to whether the board communicates well. First, the board has to speak in one voice. So Eric, when he posts out on the back porch or wherever Eric posts, is actually speaking for himself. He sometimes is giving the backstory as to how this came about, but he is speaking for himself. The board itself needs to be communicating through the management company. In other words, the board has to get together with one voice and say, and in this case, Steve's right there, say, Steve, you need to go and let people know through our different official our official areas of communication what is going on here. Initially, we had a civic corridor field going up there for $6.9 million. Someone threw that figure out, and they were like, "Oh my God!" It was totally not true. And what needs to be done, and I as a board member will be very happy. Anyone wants to come to me and talk one-to-one. I will give you the backstory on anything I've ever done in any vote I've ever taken. And I think if you hear that backstory, you will understand, number one, why I voted for it, or against something, and number two, that it was a good choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Jesse?
I think the board has improved with their transparency and their communication over the last few years. I do think there's room for improvement. I think people have a tendency when they can't find information or get direct information to assume something suspicious is going on, especially the way the world is today. So people will naturally just by default think something's going wrong, and it's not always the case at all. There's some new information that I found out just running for the board. So I think it's just helpful to be able to make it accessible, more accessible to people, and then also have a place where residents can feel comfortable asking questions without being accused of like attacking or trying to undermine other people. So I think there's some people that are afraid to speak up because they don't want to get involved in too much drama, but it happens.
Jesse. Over the past year, what do you see as the most positive decision the CROA board has made, and why? Jeff?
Was the community center this last year, or has that been a few years? I'm looking at you.
The purchase of the lot for the community center.
Well, I would say that that is the best decision they've made, and I believe that the reason why that's the best decision is because that's something that we need more of in this community, more space for people and to do things, and more opportunity for growth.
Thank you, Jeff. Kevin?
Over the past 2 years, we've definitely seen a lot of hot topics going on. We've seen, specifically over the past year itself, different discussions on how to handle things that are out of the board's control. And I appreciate that this board has stepped up to the plate and said, we cannot help as a board, but how can each member help as a neighbor? That community aspect that we have, a cornerstone of this town, of Celebration, is very important to see living through each board member. And I would say that I feel confident over the past 2 years I've seen every cornerstone lived.
Thank you. Vaughn?
I agree with the community center being probably one of the most important, if not the most important. I just have some issues with the community center. I think it's needed. I just, sitting in the board meetings and then sitting in CCDD meetings, and listening to other residents, there's issues with the funding of the community center. And there's a lot of concern about taking money from the county to pay for the center, 2.75 total, I think, $1 million. I'm sorry, 2.75 million from the county, because I've worked with government for over 30 years, and I know when the government pays for something, they maintain some type of control, or at least you have to look at the documents that control the use of that center and make sure that you don't lose that control, and that you have complete control over it. So I think the community center is very important. I just have to, I think the I's have to be dotted and T's crossed in any document that you write in an interlocal agreement with the county government.
Thank you, Vaughn. Leonard?
I believe it was the purchase of the negotiation and the purchase of the golf course lot, the Lot D up there in the Civic Corridor. There is no more land in Celebration. Whether we use this land today, tomorrow, 3 years from now. We also have another lot over at where Celebration Avenue and Celebration Boulevard hit each other, across the street by that lake as you come off of 417. That's going to be a lot longer down the road because we're required to build an iconic building on there, which is going to be a much higher cost. But back to the purchase of the lot, and let's talk about the community center. I personally am against taking county funds for it. 2.75 million sounds really nice, but we will still be completely on the hook for maintaining the building, et cetera, in perpetuity. So I'm against taking county money. That doesn't mean the building won't be built or can't be built in segments up there also. I'm also, by building in segments, you might build, say, a certain amount of meeting space that would eventually connect into a multi-purpose room. And it could be built in segments there. The 2.75 million will be collected through our capital improvement fund in 2.75 years. We're pretty much out of capital funds as you get towards the end of 2018 by building out the fields up there, the 3 athletic fields. But I think we need to then have a year of defining what we need in the building, a year designing the building, and the year after that we'd be ready to build the building. Thank you.
Jackson?
I think the question was, what's the most positive decision, not the most controversial? I think when we look back a few years from now, back to this, one of the most positive decisions this board made was the decision, even though it was a difficult one, to grant Artisan Park the ability to direct their own future when it came to selecting their management company. And the reason that that's a positive decision is that ultimately, as this community grows, we have a variety of service areas. We should let the service areas have more say in the way that their residents and their lives operate. There is no reason that we can't say that a group of people that worked as hard as the Artisan Park Committee did to find a management company should be denied that opportunity. And I think it was wise of the board, even though it was difficult and in sometimes I suspect unpleasant to go through that negotiation, to ultimately say, you know what, go ahead and try it. Let's experiment. Let's see what happens. You know, Kevin talked about the sort of the ambiance of what we are and who we are as individuals. But part of that comes from the fact that we recognize the local autonomy that goes with these different communities, that we are all part of small service areas, but all part of a bigger community. And in the long run, if we set that kind of precedent that says we want to encourage local communities, local service areas to do what's in their best interest and in the best interest of the community at large, that we're making a positive decision for the entire town.
Well, I'm going to go with the land purchase because I've been saying for years that we need a bigger facility than this one, primarily, my feeling, to offer more adult kind of activities. You know, maybe there's a room where you could do like pottery and those kinds of really nice arts and crafts things, not just cutting up, doing origami, nothing against origami, things like that. If I were on the board, I probably would have done everything to try to figure out how to buy the Stetson building, just because of its proximity to downtown, rather than having to put this community center kind of on the outskirts. But it is what it is. But I think that was just a great thing, and I just can't wait to see that happen. I think that was a great thing.
Thank you, Susan. Jessica?
I think in regards to safety and Hurricane Irma preparations, I think the communication was really well done, and everybody came together with the communication and I felt prepared this time, and I don't think we had too many issues, and everything was handled pretty well after. I also think, to tag on to that, I think it was good to see when everybody came together around the holiday time, when traffic and safety were really at risk, and everybody kind of just jumped on it and made sure that everybody was safe towards the end of the December. I was impressed, and it was one of the times I felt like everybody was sort of looking out for all of us. So that was my...
Thank you, Jessica. And I didn't miss anybody, correct? We're running, we've got a little bit of time here. So the last question, hopefully I can get 2 questions in before we do the wrap up. But if elected, where will you place the emphasis during your first several months of your term? Cindy.
Well, I think probably just getting up to speed and getting involved in the nitty-gritty of everything that's happened over the last couple of years. You know, I think I do know more than most of what's been going on and, you know, the discussions behind everything, but, you know, there's bits and pieces that are missing. I need to put all that together before I can actually be effective. So I'm probably, who's that, I'm trying to think who said, better to keep your mouth shut and be called an idiot rather than open your mouth and take all the doubt away.
It's been attributed to many people.
Yes. I think that's going to be me for the first several months. I'm going to sit there, I'm going to listen, I'm going to ask questions, and then I'm going to hit the ground running.
Jesse?
Mine's on the same lines of just listening and getting to know histories of everything, and so we don't overcover the same issues again. And I'd like to ask questions why things are the way they are, because I was always the kid who asked those questions. Why do we do it that way? Because there's always room for improvement, and also just to educate, to know background.
Thank you, Jesse. Jackson?
I think that having been in celebration from the beginning and having that perspective and then having the perspective of coming back and looking at the community today, I don't feel like I have to get up to speed, but I do think that one of the most important things to do will be to enforce the contract with CCMC, to ask questions, to make sure that we're living up to the agreement that was written, the way that it was written, the way that CCMC, I think, would like it enforced as well. I think that the first priority that I'll have is to make sure that what we do as a board and what I do as a board member will be transparent, so that people will know what questions we're asking, why we're asking the questions, and what we want to find out. And if we're doing that, then I think we're really doing the first part of our job and the most effective part of our job, which is to make sure that we're good stewards of the responsibility that we've been given here in the community.
Thank you. Vaughn?
Well, I think one of the first things I'm going to do is continue to be more diligent in reviewing all the governing documents for celebration. There are so many of them. If you look at the charter and all the bylaws, there's a lot there, and you really need to know these to be able to operate. You can't make decisions on the board without knowing the rules and guidelines and laws that you have to follow in making those decisions. Another thing I would do is continue even more so attending these other board meetings, CROA, the Joint Committee, CCDD, and to see where they're at, because you can find out a whole lot beyond sitting in a CROA meeting, what's going on in the town if you go over to CCDD and listen to their meetings. There's a lot going on. You learn a lot about the corridor that you may not hear here. And I'd also like to start meeting with our local clubs and organizations that are in town, whether it be social or charitable, and to see what their views are and what their needs may be and how they see improving celebration.
Thank you, Vaughn. Leonard?
Okay. I heard quite a few people say they're going to start by learning and getting into this. The thing I bring initially is institutional knowledge. A very valuable thing for any corporation to have is institutional knowledge. What's going on in the last 2, 3, 4 years and why? So that, I would say that's the number one portion. I personally go to most every subcommittee that we have, even though I'm not on the committee, I'm not a voting member on the committee. I sit out in the audience, and I listen to what they bring up, how it's brought up, and why they make their decisions. And our subcommittees have been very good, and they've made the correct decision 99-point-something% of the time. I don't want to do all the math there real quick. I am and have been a CDD liaison this last year, so I went to every CDD meeting for the last, well, probably for the last 2 years for CDD, except for the times I've missed it by being out of town. But I think really for any new member, the more institutional knowledge they can gain and sit down and say, why is this? What happened back here that we're doing this way? If they get filled in on that, they're going to be up to speed much faster than someone else. My first year, I thought I was very well prepared because of attending all the meetings and such for the prior year plus. And I was quite well prepared. I'd already went through, read all the documents, et cetera, but there's still a learning curve after doing all that I had. So I guess just the retention of the institutional knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Kevin?
One thing that I see when there's a board changeover often is, or one thing that I haven't seen rather, is it's always kept flowing, which is nice. Nobody slams the brakes on anything, and they don't stop and say, wait a second, it's my way or the highway. The biggest thing that all the board members need to recognize is we are here to be the community's voice. And if the community votes for you, that's because the community has a similar ideology as you do, similar passion, and similar concerns. Those residents are going to share that with you, and you need to open yourself up to receiving that communication. You need to turn around and quickly take ownership, whether it's the CROA's responsibility or it's a CDD responsibility, CANOA, whatever the case may be. Take ownership and walk that resident, because you're the resident's voice, to who can fix the problem. Who dissect that alphabet soup for each resident and say, it may not be the CROA board, but this is the person to talk to. And let's go ahead and make sure we see that it gets taken care of and that your concern is actually addressed. Keep those communication lines open, bridge those gaps, make it one board, one community, and one voice altogether. And that's the only way all of us are going to succeed.
Thank you, Kevin. And those responses were much quicker, so we can get another question and then we'll close everything.
I didn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. Yeah, do it again.
I'll be quick though, so we will
You're
still
good.
get that
You
other
don't have
question.
to worry about it. You got your 2 minutes.
In the beginning of my term, I would probably listen, and if I felt like there was anything that needed fresh eyes, I would probably give my opinion. But I feel like jumping in and trying to take over or change the way things have been going quickly would be a mistake. So I think I would ease in and hopefully be able to help by not helping or help by slightly helping.
Thank you, Jeff. And at least the audience knows that they are willing to stand up for when they're missed out. Wait, do me. So that'll teach me for being random. I might be able to get 2 more, and we'll try. Baldwin Park and Harmony followed many of the traditional neighborhood design principles which Celebration implemented. What distinguishes Celebration from those communities which would encourage families to live here? And I'm going to stop my randomness because it's not serving me well. Leonard, would you like to start, please?
What distinguishes Celebration? I think the traditions that we've developed here over the last 21 years is part of what distinguishes Celebration. I believe that we can disagree. I've disagreed with board members before, and then the next evening we go out to dinner. It's not where you're still living with your neighbors as you go forward. And I don't see where they've developed that as much. I'm less familiar with Harmony because I haven't been out that way in a long time. I was out there initially when they were building. But Baldwin Park has a more metropolitan feel. So they're Baldwin Park, but they're also Orlando right around there. So it does not have a small town, a community type feel as we have here. Is that pretty much the question you asked?
That is the question that is on here, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leonard. Jesse?
I think I have to give credit to Disney for setting it up this way, and it kind of builds interest. I think without Celebration, those other places wouldn't exist at all. I think they saw the success and the attention that it got, and and it's still going on. I think that people saw a lot of, they kind of were one of the first to put it out there because they had the money, first of all. But I think, I don't know, it just sort of set the bar higher than for people that have been trying to copy.
I agree with Jesse on the part about Disney. I mean, I can remember when Disney was still on the tower, not Walt Disney, but the name Disney was on the tower out there, the water tower. Even though that's off, this is still Disney, and everybody that comes here as visitors know it. I mean, Disney built this town, so I think we have that going for us. We have great social groups in Celebration. I've been through the Harmony. I've even looked in houses there before we even moved to the previous house we were in. I looked in Harmony. Baldwin Park to me was too spread out. It didn't look like a community. We have a town center here. We're going to have another town center over there in Island Village. We have great charities here that we can work in. We have restaurants. Just outside of Celebration, we have the arts. We have Dr. Phillips. You can attend. So there's plenty to do here. You have all the entertainment, Disney, and you have Universal. So I think we have a lot more available here for people that visit here and for the residents.
So new communities are just that. They're new. Here in Celebration, like Leonard said, we have traditions. We've got the daddy-daughter dance, the community chorus July 4th concert, Veterans Day flag ceremony, Founders Day weekend, the holiday home tour, lights on Jeter Bend, and the list goes on. Living in a new planned community is like getting new furniture. Looks great, but that's about it. Moving to Celebration is like getting new furniture, but you get to keep your slightly worn but incredibly comfortable recliner. Given the choice, most people would keep their recliner.
I agree with the Disney thing, and I know it's no longer a Disney property, but it seems like the standards that we keep in this community live up to those standards that have always been considered by people when it comes to the Disney company and Walt Disney. And I've also not been to Harmony, but I have been to Baldwin Park, and it doesn't seem anything like this. It seems like the beauty of Celebration is that it does feel like a town. You see a lot of the same people. You go to the restaurants downtown. There are a lot of events that we like to attend, and I hate to be snobby about it, but I just think this is better.
Thanks, Jeff. Jackson?
You know, I love living in Celebration. It's not because of the architecture. It's pretty, but that's not the reason. I love it because I can think back to when we fought for the ability of our children to have the best education possible. I love it because we banded together to make sure that everyone was brought in and made welcome here, that we didn't put gates up in the community, that we allowed people to come and participate. I love it that tonight I see a couple that's been here since the very beginning, and one row or two rows behind them is a couple that's been here 6 months. What an awesome place it is that we can do that we can bring people into this community and integrate them in. I love the fact that the foundation has survived so much, so very much, and is still standing and thriving and growing and doing things that need to be done. Those are the things that make this community unique and different. It's not the projects per se, it's the people who've put their heart and their soul and their passion into them. And that makes me very, very proud to be a Celebration resident.
Thank you, Jackson. Kevin?
That's exactly it. What Celebration has is something you can't buy. You hear it a lot. It's often imitated. It's never replicated. And the reality is it's nice to want others to want to be like us. I know it's horrible to say it, but you all think it. Things that are nice about us, and something that I had earlier this week, and not to get too far ahead of anything, but there's a conversation of a company that came to Celebration, not Baldwin Park, not Harmony, to go ahead and learn about a business venture that they may be able to do. There's a reason why. We are the original. They were looking at something about autonomous cars. Again, let's not let that get chattery, but transparency is this company from California came to Florida and looked at Celebration. We're speaking volumes. Why do new residents continue to choose to purchase in Celebration? They have the opportunity when they're coming to Orlando from so far away to go to Baldwin Park, to go to Harmony, to go to any of the other communities, but Disney created something here that was never created before. Disney taught Osceola County the ropes to how to have a community like ours. And without that, without being the number one and the original, none of these others would exist.
Thank you, Kevin. We have one more. Good. We might run a little bit over, but we'll try not to. Elaborate on your involvement in the community. What organizations do you actively belong to? How many association meetings have you attended? What community events did you participate in by volunteering your time this year? Cindy?
I was going to start making another list.
Sorry.
That's okay. Geez. Well, I was involved with the Celebration Foundation and Thriving in Place. I was on the advisory committee for them for a while. I used to do the intake. I was the first face that they really got to see when they joined because I take all their information from them. I really enjoyed doing that. I volunteer at Corpus Christi Catholic Church. Geez. Do I know what else I do in my spare time? I'm sorry. That's it. Okay. I mean, I can tell you, I used to volunteer at the Pie Festival, and I was on the Parks and Recreation Committee and all that other stuff. But you said within the last year, so this is only February. That's all I got.
Thank you, Jeff.
In the last year, this is the first thing that I've ever done when it comes to any of the boards or any of the community. What's the word that we used there? This is my first thing. In the last year, I've had a child, and we've been very busy, so I haven't been to any of the events, and I'm a member of the Presbyterian Church. I guess that would be it.
Thank you, Jeff. Jackson?
I feel like I earned my spurs about 20 years ago. I was the first person to run for public office from Celebration in Osceola County. I made connections and worked in a variety of capacities. I served as the chairman of the Osceola County School Board Citizen Oversight Committee, which had the responsibility for seeing how millions and millions of dollars were spent in school construction throughout this county. I've remained an active member of the events and the activities that go on around us. I've been involved in Artisan Park, where I live. The reality, I think, is not how many committees you sit on, how many meetings you attend, how many items you can attach to your resume. I think the real value of what we're looking for in leadership are people that can look at the community and connect and touch bases in many places. I've had the ability to have lived in Main Village. I rented at Mirasol. I rented at Terraces of Celebration. I've seen a lot of what goes on in this community. And I think that in some ways is at least as important as how many meetings I sit at home and watch on YouTube, although I watch a lot.
Thank you, Jackson. Kevin?
This is going to be not my strongest question that I can go ahead and respond to. I'm a little younger. I do have a full-time job. I am also self-employed since I was 19, where I go ahead and I operate currently a resort bar and grill, not too far from here, about 10 minutes away. I've built and sold companies over the years. That's been my passion and what I've done. Apart, however, from Leonard, who's obviously on the board, and Gary, another candidate who has been to every meeting, I do have to say that. I'd say that I'd be the ones to follow. I came to CROA originally with a concern, and I've stayed here to learn. I've attended the meetings as frequent as possible to go ahead and understand. But the biggest thing is when you do volunteer, you don't do it for showing it. You do it because you want to do it. So when I talk to, whether it be a neighbor or even, there was a Boy Scouts basket giveaway last week. I made sure I donated that basket to them. It's the little things that you can do, not because you want the credit for it, but because you do what's right. I did a lot of volunteering when I was younger, and unfortunately, when you go into your 20s and 30s, that's just not possible anymore. Everybody knows it, especially when you're getting your roots started to go ahead and grow that family.
Thank you, Kevin. Start with Cindy. I remember this time.
No, that's fine. It's going to sound like a big number, but let me back up and say something to what Kevin had just said. Gary Hudspeth, who's not here tonight, probably won't get asked this question, but he's been to every board meeting for close to 2 years, and a lot of our workshops he comes into, et cetera, et cetera. So he's prepared himself that way. Now him aside, myself, I stopped once I passed 150, once I was trying to count up just the last 12 months. So it's 150 plus would be my answer to that. Thank you.
Jesse?
I've become more involved with our condo association and actually learning how all of the entities work together or don't work together very well. So I've seen like gaps and things, but in this process of sort of investigating how everything works, we're all self-managed at Town Center condos, so it's voluntary, and residents are just pitching in however they can to get as much information as possible. And I've probably dedicated 2 years. I think I've read every meeting minutes that's on the Celebration website. I have them, like I've read them several times, some of them, just to get some information. So actually that's been helpful, and that's sort of why I decided to run, because there were some things that kept repeating, and I want to make sure that those issues, they're not new, that we don't let them continue being a problem.
Thank you. Vaughn?
I've been on the Covenants Committee for about 3 years now, and the job has changed there. It's a volunteer committee. We used to actually impose the fines there, but now that law has changed, and that's done by the board of directors now. And all the Covenants Committee does is confirm or reject the fines based on new information that may come in. It's a great committee to be on. I'm in full support of the Celebration Foundation. I'm not on the board, but I support when I can by helping Winter Wonderland. I'm a concert series sponsor. I'm a member of the Celebrators, member of Corpus Christi Catholic Church, and as far as attending meetings, I attend as many CROA meetings as I can, and if I can't attend them, I watch them online, and I do the same thing with the CCDD meetings as well.
Thank you very much. Looks like it's time to wrap up. So we have 2 minutes again as your closing statements. We will go ahead and start with Kevin and work our way back through.
Fantastic. Well, first I want to say thank you to everybody that's shown up, to the staff, and of course to everybody that's watching online. The fact that we originally started off with 15 candidates for this year, a record for 4 seats, means the residents have something to share and have a concern. But more importantly, that means you have 15 people that originally stepped up to commit their time and volunteer for the greater good of our community. Now we have 10 excellent candidates that are up here that are running all together, and I really appreciate everybody's time that they're putting forward. 2 minutes in the beginning and 2 minutes in the end is not enough to go ahead and teach you anything about me. I will be tomorrow at Food Truck Friday. I believe it's from 5 to 9, and I'll be there for as long as everybody else is. Additionally, on Sunday, I'll be posting something on the back porch to share it as well. Somebody that I do know that's a realtor in town invited me to their open house to go ahead and open up another environment that we can talk one-on-one and actually learn who each other are. And then the last thing, of course, we have another forum next week. My information's online. I will answer that phone 24/7. Working self-employed, that's the way I was raised. That's the only option it is. You don't know what that call might be. So please don't ever hesitate. 10 o'clock at night, I don't care if I end up on this board or not. As a neighbor, call me if you need anything, truly.
Thank you, Kevin. Jackson?
I'm way older than Kevin. I go to bed at 9. So don't call me. I think that I echo everything that Kevin says about being excited about the candidates and the enthusiasm. I think there's enthusiasm for running for this board because things haven't been as good as they should have been. I think that if everything was going along fine, you'd still be dragging and pulling teeth to get people to run for CROA. The fact that there's been so much interest reflects the fact that there's a lot at stake. We have a lot coming in the next couple of years. You've heard some of that discussed tonight. It's going to take intelligent people asking good questions and then being open to good ideas to move us forward. I have no agenda, none. There's no reason that I'm coming on this board if I'm elected to do one specific thing. It's simply to lead, and to lead by asking good questions and then making sure that the community is involved. If that makes sense to you, if that's the way that you would want things to operate, then I ask that you would support me. I hope that you will see that there are candidates running in this election who take that position, who want that kind of openness and transparency. And if that's the kind of board that you think Celebration deserves, then I ask for your vote.
Thank you all for coming out tonight, and everybody watching online. I appreciate the time to let you get to know me a little bit, and I'll also be at Food Truck Friday tomorrow night. I'm unfortunately not going to be at the next forums. I apologize for that. I look forward to the opportunity, so if I get it, I will do my best to do the best for you, and that's pretty much all I have. Thank you.
If you read the information that I submitted that's in the paper and on the front porch, you may remember that I'm from Northwest Indiana, just outside of Chicago, or what we refer to as the region. The Bears, the Bulls, the region. In general, we're innately hardworking, honest, sometimes brutally so, and totally open. Those who know me probably say this describes me in a nutshell. And that's important to those of you watching to know. Why? You'll always know where I stand. I'm not one to shy away from voicing my opinion, even if no one else agrees with me at the time. I'll make decisions that make sense. I'll always base my decisions on what I believe is in the best interest of our community. There's more to fiduciary responsibility than just dollars and cents. Creative solutions. I pride myself on being able to think outside the box. My first boss at the bank told me I would never be of use to him until I learned to anticipate. When presented with a project or problem, I've trained myself to think ahead, anticipate any issues, identify several possible solutions, choose the best course of action, and proceed accordingly. And lastly, I will always listen to you. If you reach out to me, I'll be happy to chat with you on the telephone, make myself available to meet face-to-face at your convenience, and answer your emails promptly. I do not do social media for various reasons, and I don't text. But if you call me, call me old-fashioned, but I still believe that talking is the best way to communicate. Thank you for your time and consideration. Good night.
Cindy, Paul?
I'm just glad to see we had so many people running for office here. We have a diversity of backgrounds and talents here. I think you have a good opportunity to choose 4 people that you think would do a great job. All of us have our strengths. Some of us, we all know our weaknesses, but I think we can tap into each other's talents here on the new board and get things done. I think the people that are on the running for office, I'm hoping that whoever gets elected to the board is able to work in conjunction with one another, be civil, no character assassinations, those types of things that sometimes go on. But I think it's going to work out really well, and I think the new board is going to be really good for Celebration.
I just like to be open. I like to meet people and find out what's going on in their lives, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't know still, and just to get a different perspective and think divergently when approaching a problem, not how I would necessarily think, how I always try to put how I would think in my perspective, but like just to put myself in somebody else's shoes and where they're coming from, because everybody speaks the truth. It's just sometimes a different side. And I just like to help resolve problems because I'm concerned about the town and the people. And I think we can also tap into one of our biggest resources, and that's the community itself and the people. We don't have to always go to companies and stuff. There's people in town with the skills and abilities that might take interest in actually helping with projects.
Thank you, Jesse. Leonard?
Thanks for everyone coming this evening. This is probably the largest crowd we've had for these forums that I remember. You've been at most of them, Vanessa, wouldn't you say that? One thing I am is open. I don't tell one person one thing and go and tell someone else something different. If you hear my opinion to you, I will give that same opinion to you, to you, to you. And it will be based on facts, et cetera, et cetera. I will also listen to your side of the story as much as you want to tell. And I will weigh that in, and I could change my opinion. I've done that before. I've been, in the past, I've been accused of thinking out of this circle around the box. So a little bit further out than just thinking around the box. We have 4,321 property owners currently in Celebration. Most of them, if they have their dues paid, et cetera, are eligible to vote. I would urge every property owner to vote. Make your voice heard. And I would ask you for your vote for me. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Leonard. Thank you to all the candidates. Thank you to the staff here at Town Hall. This was it's a lot of work for you to put it all together. So thank you very much for doing that also. The next forum will be on Tuesday evening, February the 13th, from 7 to 8:30. I hope you can all join us either in person or at home. Thank you very much. Oh, Food Truck Friday tomorrow night from 5 to 9. Thank you. Anything else? Perfect. Thank you very much.